It is worth it visiting Cuba. It is actually cheap coming to Cuba. These are going to be two of the questions that I want to give you the right answer of in today's video. Hello guys, my name is Alex and welcome to alexr.emprende.com. Just in case you're new here, in this channel we're always talking about the tourism in Cuba and explaining to you guys everything you should know before coming to Cuba. We're going to be talking about other countries eventually, but so far Cuba it is. When it comes to talking about prices in Cuba, this is something very relative. It depends about your budget. You're probably rich, you're probably not. It is cheap for you $1,000. It is cheap for you $500. It depends. But now let me give you like a range about how much you could be expending in Cuba so you can know exactly if this is going to be cheap or not, depending on your budget. Nowadays, due to inflation, Cuba is one of the most expensive countries in Latin America. This is something that I'm not saying because I live in Cuba, but for many reasons. Number one, the transfer is going to be expensive. And the reason why people visit Cuba, even knowing that Cuba is going to be expensive, is because they want to see something completely different to whatever is the country that you probably are visiting in Latin America. Dominican Republic, Mexico, whatever. Cuba is something that is going to keep your brain working, like why is Cuba like this? Why is Cuba like that? Why people live like this? Why is this? Why is that? Because of the people, because of the way that Cuba works. When it comes to prices, yes, transfer is going to be expensive. Food, no nowadays, because now when you exchange the money on the right way, which is not going to the official places, Alex, why are you saying that? It's because of the inflation. $1 is 205 pesos. So if you go outside, you could be paying for probably a meal, $24, $25. It depends about, of course, the place where you go, but that's average. Now, if you go to an extremely expensive place, you could be spending like $100 per meal, but it's up to you. I mean, it depends if that's going to be expensive for you or not. What I'm trying to say here is that the most expensive things that you're going to find in Cuba is going to be the transfer. I mean, the transportation, if you want to get a taxi, a private one, if you want to rent a car, if you want to do the transfer among cities, it's completely up to you. Let's do the math. Let's calculate that you're going to be spending Cuba between $50 to $100 average. You can always spend more or less depending on how much you bring or how cheap or expensive you are, including meals, including accommodation, and including the taxi or the transfer. Now, if you want to get outside of the city, calculate a little more. I actually have a video talking about that I'm gonna put it at the end of this video so you can watch it and learn a little more. The prices, let me tell you in advance, the prices are going to be different because that video is old, but you can see compared to nowadays. If you want to see how are the prices now, let me know in the comments below so I can create another video explaining you guys how is Cuba working nowadays, right now, compared to the prices, so you can have that one. Oh shit, it's extremely hot. Also, when it comes to prices in Cuba or thinking if Cuba is going to be a cheap country, it depends about the season. The low season, which is right now, summer, so you can tell I'm melting, is going to be much cheaper because the accommodation is going to be cheaper, the transfer, it might be cheaper, and in high season, Cuba is super crowded all the time. People are visiting Cuba all the time in high season, which is from November to February, almost March. So if you come in that time, it's going to be super on demand, which means that it's going to be more expensive. But again, talking about prices is relative. It's all about how much you want to spend. Question number 2, visiting only Havana is worth it or not? Let's put this in a different perspective. If I was you, for example, and I'm only visiting Havana, I will highly recommend you to think about what you want to do in Havana. People come to Havana to see how people live, to see something different. People wants to see how local live. People wants to get in these old cars. People wants to get a mojito. People wants to be close to Vinales, which is only 2.5 hours from Havana. People wants to be able to visit Varadero, which is 2.5 hours from Havana. People visit Havana for one reason. Think about why you will love visiting Havana. What do you want to see? Do you want to meet locals? Do you want to know more about the revolution? Do you want to know more about the Cuban culture? Do you want to get closer to Vinales or Varadero? Another good things that Havana has to offer. Who just visit Havana? Many people. And actually, something that you probably don't know is that many people have visited Cuba before and they never been in Havana. I actually have a client, his name is Glenn. Actually, he supports the channel and he's been in Cuba so many times. He has visited Havana like 2-3 times, something like that, which is crazy because if you love Cuba, Havana, it must be one of the places that you should consider visiting in the future, in long term, or maybe tomorrow, up to you, but visit Havana, 100%. Havana is one of the most contrasted cities that you're gonna find, and the reason is because something that you could find in Havana is that a very ugly building almost falling apart next to a luxury hotel. Why? Because that's the way that Cuba works. And that's something that if you see by yourself, you're gonna be blown away. People from Canada, they love Cuba and they love the Cayos, which means that so many of them, they have been in the Cayos so many times, you have no idea. I met a person in Cayo Coco that have been in Cuba 20 times. And the reason why I tell people visit Havana is because they need to know more about the community. They need to know more about how Cuba works. And that's something that you will not see if you visit Varadero or the Cayos, which is completely fine. I mean, at the end, you want to come to Cuba to enjoy the sun, to enjoy the sand, to enjoy the beach, to have a good time. That's completely fine. But you can also come and see more about the culture. You can also come and know more about the locals. And that's why I highly recommend you guys to visit alexr.emprende.com. We do provide custom travel tours here in Cuba. We can take you to Trinidad, we can take you to Varadero, we can take you to Viñales, but we have some special things that you probably never get if you come by yourself. Imagine visiting Havana, for example, and having a conversation with a sociologist, with an economic, with a university professor, teacher. Some professionals, they're going to be explaining you how Cuba works in a different, completely different perspective. We can give you that. We can also give you a classic card if you want to, because believe it or not, tons of people have no idea how Cuba is. And that's why I'm currently in has been created. Love you, it was a pleasure having you here and see all your smiling faces. See you guys in the next video podcast, who knows. Love you. Chao pecado, picadillo, tú sabes quiénes somos. I'm currently in.